Okay, so get this right. They're making a documentary, and it's gonna star some pretty big names. Catherine Hahn's in it, for one, and it's basically recreating what went down in the courtroom, during the whole E. Jean Carroll case against Trump.
And the timing of it all is, I
Yeah.
mean, you couldn't plan this, right? It's not just like rehashing the trial, because we all remember how that went down,
Yeah.
right? Trump was found liable for the sexual abuse, the defamation, but not the rape charge itself. But for this to come out now, right before the election,
Yeah.
it just puts the whole thing back in everyone's minds, you know?
Totally, totally. It makes you wonder what they're aiming for, like what's the goal here with the election so close? I mean, just in case anyone needs a refresher, E. Jean Carroll, she's a pretty big deal author, journalist. She accused Trump of raping her. This goes way back to the 90s. And this documentary, it's not about, relitigating who was right or wrong. It's about Carol's story, her experience, told through what she said on the stand. Like, they're using film to, I don't know, explore some pretty heavy stuff,
Yeah, no, totally. It takes all that stuff that's been stuck in legal briefs, news articles, and makes it, like, real.
And they're being smart about it, too. Our sources say this thing is going online, free. Everyone and their mother can watch it. Clearly, they want as many eyeballs on this as possible. But what's really got me thinking is this whole thing with the actresses, right? They got 3 different actresses, each one voicing parts of Carol's testimony. What do you make of that choice, using actresses like that?
Well, it's, when you're dealing with something as difficult as this, as personal, it's a way to give it, I don't know, a voice, By having these actresses, these professionals, embody her words, it adds something that you just don't get from a dry transcript. It makes you feel it, the weight of what she went through.
It's like, yeah, they don't want us to just know the facts of the case, but like feel it in our gut. And don't forget, this is all happening while Trump's out there campaigning. Newsweek even pointed out how he's been really trying to appeal to women voters lately. Talk about a powerful counter-narrative, right?
And that free release strategy, that's huge. Do you think it'll actually reach people who don't usually watch this kind of thing, Like, could this have more of an impact than if it was a regular documentary release?
That's a good question, right? Like, how many people will this actually reach? Because it's so easy to see. And we can't forget about Trump's reaction to all this. Newsweek mentioned how he's trying to discredit the whole thing, says it's made up, that he doesn't even know Carroll.
And, we're not here to say who's right or wrong, but
Yeah.
But him getting so defensive, it kind of shows you how much power these stories have, especially during something like an election. It's not just about one court case anymore. It's about how people see you, how these stories get told and retold, especially stories about power and, abuse. It gets people talking, for better or worse. It's kind of like how these stories become part of something bigger, right? Like the case, this film coming out, and then, bam, the election. It's not just about what the jury decided.
It's like they're throwing a rock into a pond, and we're all just watching to see how big those ripples get.
Exactly. And, speaking of big reactions, we're going to talk about how Trump's handling this whole thing. Newsweek mentioned how he's basically saying, nope, never happened, don't know her, that whole thing. Even calling it a con. Can you believe that?
And that's actually interesting you bring that up, because MovieWeb was talking about this other movie, The Apprentice. Remember that? It's coming out right before the election, too. And apparently there's a scene in it that Trump's not too happy about either.
So it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
right? Like, is he pushing back so hard against all these movies because he knows deep down how powerful they can be, especially when it comes to how people see him, public opinion, all that.
I mean, yeah, it makes you think, could this documentary actually change people's minds about voting for him?
Especially with how they're putting it out there. Free online. That's a smart move. Way more people will see it than in theaters. You can't ignore it, even if you wanted to.
That's a really good point. It's not just the people who, follow this stuff super closely. Anyone can watch this. Everyone has an opinion.
And that's what's so crazy about it, right? Documentaries, they're not just entertainment anymore. They can actually change things.
It's a lot of responsibility for the filmmakers, especially with a topic this sensitive.
Absolutely. This whole thing, the case, the documentary, the timing, it shows how much power stories have over us. It makes you think, how much do these things actually change our minds about stuff? Not just court cases, but about the people involved, especially now when we're drowning in information.
And it's wild. We're sitting here talking about this movie, but we haven't even seen it yet. It could be totally different than what we're imagining. Until it's out there, who knows what kind of impact it'll actually have.
I know, right? It's like this big question mark, but a really juicy one. You've got the legal battle, the media circus, the election, and now this documentary, just thrown into the mix. It's like a case study in how public opinion works, unfolding right in front of us.
It's almost like scary, you know? Like this movie is forcing everyone to look at some really uncomfortable stuff. Power, who to believe, the stories we tell ourselves, it's all right there.
And the thing is, this isn't just like sit back and watch. By putting it online for free, they're basically saying, okay, now it's your turn. Engage with this, think about it, don't just take our word for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's on us now to decide what we think. So I guess that brings us to the end of our deep dive here. And man, I keep coming back to how much power a good story has. We are just bombarded with information these days. It's overwhelming, you know? But a story, like a really well-told story that sticks with you, changes how you see things.
Absolutely. And this whole thing, this documentary, it reminds us that those stories are out there. They can change how we think, start important conversations,
Yeah.
and maybe even have a real impact on what happens next.
So to everyone listening, do yourselves a favor. Check out this documentary when you get a chance. See it, hear it, and then think about it. Really think about it. Did it change your mind? Did it make you question things? Because at the end of the day, that's what a good story should do, make you think even after it's over.
Couldn't have said it better myself. In a world where everyone's yelling at you to pick a side, just taking a second to actually think for yourself, that's powerful.